The winter wind rattled the windows of Cedar Grove Cafe as 42-year-old Daniel Morrison sat hunched over his laptop at a table near the back corner, the soft glow of the screen reflecting off his tired face. His expensive navy coat hung on the chair beside him, and his graying hair showed the stress of 18 months spent building walls around his heart. As founder and CEO of Morrison Tech Solutions, Daniel had achieved remarkable professional success, but personal happiness had eluded him since his wife Elena died in a climbing accident, leaving him questioning everything he thought he knew about life and love. Daniel had taken to working from coffee shops in the evenings, finding the gentle background noise preferable to the oppressive silence of his penthouse apartment. Tonight, however, he was struggling to concentrate on quarterly reports, his mind wandering to memories of Elena and the future they would never share. The cafe was unusually busy for a Tuesday evening, with families seeking refuge from the storm outside. Daniel barely noticed the activity around him until a small, polite voice penetrated his distraction. "Excuse me, mister," came a sweet but slightly weak voice. "Would it be okay if I sat at your table? My grandma said I should ask nicely, and all the other seats are taken." Daniel looked up from his computer to see a little girl who appeared to be about 5 years old, wearing a cozy blue sweater and a bright pink knit hat that seemed too large for her small head. She was noticeably thin and pale, with dark circles under her brown eyes that suggested ongoing health challenges. In her arms, she carried a small brown teddy bear that looked as well loved as she was clearly well cared for. "Of course, sweetheart," Daniel replied, immediately closing his laptop and moving his papers to make room. "I am Daniel. What is your name?" "I am Sophie," she said as she carefully climbed into the chair across from him, settling her teddy bear on the table with great ceremony. "This is Coco. He has to come with me everywhere because he helps me remember to be brave when things are scary." Daniel felt a familiar tightness in his chest at Sophie's innocent admission. Elena had worked as a pediatric nurse, and he recognized the signs of a child who had spent considerable time in medical settings. "Are you here with someone, Sophie?" Daniel asked gently, scanning the crowded cafe for a guardian. "My grandma is ordering our soup," Sophie replied, pointing toward an older woman at the counter who appeared to be in her 60s. "She takes care of me while my mama is working. Mama has to work extra hours because my treatments cost a lot of money." Daniel observed the elderly woman at the counter, noting her careful consideration of the menu prices and the worn but clean appearance of her clothing. He recognized the signs of a family stretching every dollar to manage medical expenses. "What kind of treatments do you need, if you do not mind me asking?" Daniel inquired carefully, not wanting to pry but genuinely concerned about this brave little girl. Sophie's expression grew serious, reflecting a maturity that no 5-year-old should need to possess. "I have something called leukemia, which means my blood is sick. The doctors give me special medicines to help fight the sickness, but sometimes the medicines make me feel really tired and sad." Daniel felt his heart break for this courageous child who spoke about her life-threatening illness with such calm acceptance. "That sounds very difficult, Sophie. You must be incredibly strong." "Grandma says I am strong like my mama," Sophie replied with quiet pride. "Mama works at 2 different stores so we can pay the doctors. She gets really tired, but she always tells me that love gives us energy to do hard things." The wisdom in Sophie's words struck Daniel deeply. Here was a sick child from a struggling family who had learned profound lessons about love and resilience, while he, with all his resources and advantages, had spent over a year paralyzed by grief and self-pity. "Your mama and grandma sound like very special people," Daniel said sincerely. "They are the best in the whole world," Sophie agreed, then tilted her head and studied Daniel with curious eyes. "You look sad, Mr. Daniel. Are you sick too?" Daniel paused, struck by the directness of her observation. "I am not sick in my body, Sophie, but I think maybe I have been sick in my heart. I lost someone very important to me, and I have been having trouble figuring out how to be happy again." Sophie nodded with understanding that seemed far beyond her years. "When I first got sick, I was really scared and angry all the time. But Grandma told me that being sad is okay for a while, but we cannot stay sad forever because the people who love us want us to find reasons to smile again." At that moment, Sophie's grandmother approached their table carrying a tray with soup and sandwiches. She appeared surprised to find her granddaughter engaged in serious conversation with a well-dressed businessman. "Sophie, honey, "I hope you have not been bothering this gentleman," she said apologetically. "I am Margaret Sullivan. Sophie has always been very social, but I know not everyone wants to chat with children." "Please, Mrs. Sullivan, there is no need to apologize," Daniel said, standing respectfully. "Sophie has been delightful company. I am Daniel Morrison, and I have very much enjoyed our conversation." Margaret's expression softened as she recognized Daniel's genuine warmth toward her granddaughter. "That is very kind of you to say. Sophie does love meeting new people, though I sometimes worry she shares too much personal information." "Grandma, Mr. Daniel seems really nice," Sophie interjected. "He listened to everything I said about Coco and my treatments, and he did not look at me like I was weird or scary." Margaret smiled at her granddaughter's assessment, noting that Sophie seemed more energetic than she had been in weeks. "Well, if Mr. Morrison does not mind sharing his table, you can eat your dinner here." Over the next 90 minutes, Daniel found himself completely absorbed in conversations about Sophie's favorite books, her dreams of becoming a doctor to help other sick children, and her surprisingly sophisticated observations about kindness and courage. Her enthusiasm for life, despite her serious illness, reminded him of qualities Elena had always tried to nurture in him. "Mr. Daniel, can I tell you a secret?" Sophie asked as she finished her soup. "Of course, Sophie. Sometimes when I am really scared about the treatments or worried about Mama working so hard, I pretend that angels are watching over us. Grandma says that people who loved us and had to go to heaven still care about what happens to us." Daniel felt tears threatening as he considered Sophie's innocent faith. "I think your grandma is very wise, Sophie. I think the person I lost would want me to help people when I can, especially brave little girls like you." As they prepared to leave, Daniel made a decision that felt both spontaneous and inevitable. "Mrs. Sullivan, I hope this does not seem inappropriate, but I would like to help with Sophie's medical expenses. I have been looking for meaningful ways to use resources that I am not currently putting to good use." Margaret stared at him with shock and immediate concern. "Mr. Morrison, that is extraordinarily generous, but we could not possibly accept such assistance from someone we have just met." "Grandma," Sophie said with the serious tone she used for important announcements, "remember what you always tell me about accepting help when it comes from people who really care." Daniel smiled at Sophie's intervention. "Your granddaughter is right, Mrs. Sullivan. Sometimes helping others is exactly what we need to begin healing ourselves." 9 months later, as Daniel sat in the same cafe watching Sophie play with other children from the pediatric ward, her treatment successfully completed and her health fully restored, he often reflected on how an evening conversation had transformed his understanding of purpose and joy. Sophie had taught him that healing from loss meant not forgetting love, but finding new ways to express it through service to others who needed support. She had shown him that hope and gratitude could coexist with struggle and fear, creating a foundation for resilience that no amount of money could purchase. Margaret had become not just a friend but a mentor in his journey toward emotional recovery, someone who understood both loss and the power of family love to sustain us through the darkest times. When Daniel and Margaret's daughter Kate, Sophie's mother, began dating 6 months after Sophie's recovery, it felt like a natural evolution of relationships built on mutual respect and shared commitment to Sophie's well-being. Their engagement was announced at a celebration in the pediatric wing of the children's hospital that Daniel had helped renovate, with Sophie serving as the official ring bearer. Daniel had discovered that love multiplies when shared generously, creating connections that heal old wounds while building new foundations for happiness based not on what we have lost, but on what we choose to give to others who need our care.